Hello, it's me, Daryl, Florida Catholic guy. Uh, it's about 10 o'clock at night, a little after 10. I thought I'd do a quick video. I'm on my iPad, so probably look a little different. Got through the 4th of July. I didn't do much for fireworks because it's been so dry around here that technically you weren't supposed to light them off anyway, but everybody does. But I just stuck with some small stuff I got at Publix, sparklers and ground-based stuff that throws sparks, colorful sparks up in the air and makes pop sounds. In fact, there's more people lighting them off tonight, as you probably just heard. It was a good night. Of course, I watched Trump's speech both nights. And I know I've been critical of him, and I still am on this whole Iran thing. But one thing I will say is that I'm so grateful we have President Trump right now. And one thing you can't question him on is he loves his country, and he's very patriotic. And you got the left out here that didn't celebrate America's 250th. And they want to turn this country into a communist country, like Mamdani's doing in New York, doing in California, and wherever the left is in control, it's a shithole. Excuse my language.
Go ahead.
But,
Never mind, he's working.
he's not perfect, obviously. Nobody is. Even Reagan had his faults. Reagan did an amnesty thing for millions of illegals, and that wasn't too good. But, the more I think about this Iran thing, I think it's a no-win situation right now. Because in order to finish it properly, they're going to have to put boots on the ground, either at the very least on Kharg Island to be able to secure the Strait of Hormuz, or actually go into Iran and to get their nuclear stuff. And if we do any kind of a ground invasion, even if it's just on Kharg Island, you're going to see thousands, maybe tens of thousands of dead Americans. And I don't think Trump has the stomach for that, and I don't think this country would have the stomach for that, quite honestly, even on our side. Might we do some more airstrikes? Probably we could. But I think Trump is trying to get the Strait of Hormuz open, and then just, I think he is trying to do the nuclear thing, but I don't think Iran is going to go for that. But we need that strait back open, otherwise gas prices, oil prices are going to stay elevated like they are.
7908 Bahia Avenue.
So,
Cross streets are South 79th Street and South 82nd Street.
But other than that, he's done a lot of good for our country. He's done a lot better than what the other side is doing. For the first time since February 22nd, I was able to get to Mass today. I've been having some legal issues that I've referenced, and part of the issue is I have a driving restrictions where basically I can only go out to like a grocery store, the pharmacy, doctor's appointments, you know, basically the necessities. And part of the issue of not being able to talk with your lawyer before, before a bond hearing is that you don't get to tell them what you need or what's important to you. So I wasn't able to mention that I need to go to church on Sundays, and so when I told her what we had to do was, file paperwork for a motion to amend, I guess, my driving conditions to allow me to go to Mass. And of course, anything through the court system takes a lot of time. So finally had the hearing for that last week, and I was granted permission to go to Mass on Sunday. So, and judge was pretty good. Funny part is he asked me what church I go to, and of course, first time in court, I'm nervous and everything. I couldn't think of the name of the church. He asked me what street it's on. I couldn't think of the street it was on. Finally, I thought of the name of it, and so I was at least able to tell him that. So, but he did grant me the ability to go to church, so it felt really good going back. I went to confession for the first time in a couple months. And I can't say anything, but I think things are going to work out on the legal side. I should know within a few weeks.
Rescue 45. Respond to abdominal pain. Initial response. 2641. Review the Lake Drive.
I've gained a lot of weight.
Cross streets are Columbus Drive and
I'm back up to
Center
311 pounds after getting down to like 270. I think I was in the 260s even. But I haven't been able to go out walking, and of course being under the stress that I've been under, I've been doing nothing but eating bad stuff. And not good. So, hopefully now that things hopefully are getting settled, I'll be able to get back on track with that. And, start taking care of my health more. So, since this is Florida Catholic Guy, I'll talk a little bit about what's going on in the Catholic Church right now, because there's some big stuff going on. The Society of St. Pius X, which is a traditional order, I guess you'd say. They have churches all around the world, and they're dedicated to the traditional Latin Mass. And they formed when Bishop Marcel Lefebvre, I think is his name, after Vatican II, he broke off and didn't accept it. So he started the Society of St. Pius X, known as the SSPX, and they're dedicated to all the traditional rites. You know, they say the traditional Latin Mass. When they ordain priests, they do it in the traditional way, and they just totally reject Vatican II. So,
Respond to assault.
Archbishop Lefebvre, when he started the society,
Cross streets are
he
near Forest Glen Boulevard.
ordained, I guess you would say, I think it was four bishops. I know a couple of their names. I don't know them all, so I'm not going to say them. But now that was back in the 1960s. So all these bishops now are getting pretty old. Bishop Archbishop Lefebvre, of course, died a long time ago. But when he ordained the four bishops, the Vatican declared them excommunicated and excommunicated the society and told the faithful they couldn't go to their masses and stuff, but people still went anyway. And then finally, under Pope Benedict XVI, he lifted the excommunications and basically said they were never valid in the first place. He said they're not in schism, they're not excommunicated. The faithful can go to their masses, they can get the sacraments, weddings, marriages, first communion, whatever, all the sacraments that we have, they can do through the society. And a lot of, I don't know about a lot, but there was some bishops that supported the society and let them into the diocese, and because it took care of, a lot of these Vatican II churches don't want anything to do with the traditional Latin Mass, so by allowing the society into their diocese, they can take care of that, and they can have their church, and they can do their Vatican II stuff. And of course, you had a lot of diocesan Latin masses, because one of the things Pope Benedict did was he gave any priest permission that if they wanted to say the Latin Mass, they didn't have to ask permission of the bishop. They didn't have to do anything. And if they had any number of people in the church that wanted a Latin Mass, they could offer a Latin Mass. So he basically opened up the traditional Mass for everybody. And then when we got Francis, of course, he put out that BS paper basically banning the Latin Mass from many parish churches. And if they were going to have a Latin Mass, they would have to get permission from Rome to have the Latin Mass. And the only way they would give them permission is if they promised to, try to bring these people that like the Latin Mass into the Novus Ordo Vatican II Mass. And of course that didn't work. So you had Pope Francis, he left the SSPX alone. Those, people had them, the SSPX in their diocese, they were able to still function because, obviously they technically weren't diocesan parishes. So that would satisfy his letter that he wrote, called a motu proprio, I guess. Traditionis Custodes was the name of it. And a lot of churches that had diocesan Latin masses had to find somewhere else besides parish churches to have their mass. Some people, like my old church up in Maine, they got an extension. We got a 2-year extension. We got a 2-year extension down here in Florida. But now up in Maine, the Latin Mass community moved into their own, we call it an oratory. Basically, it's a church that, was sitting empty, so the diocese gave it to them so they could fix it up and have their Latin Masses there. So the bishop appointed what they call a rector, which is basically a priest that takes care of the, saying the Mass and everything. And Maine does have certain days that they do have Latin Masses, like First Fridays, First Saturdays. They will have Latin Masses in some other parishes. So I guess they at least have that. I guess they got a new bishop since I left, and I guess he's good. He's pro-tradition, so that's good. And of course, we got a good bishop down here. And the stuff we had to do, our parish priest, they brought in the Institute of Christ the King down here, and they sent our parish priest, because he didn't want anything to do with saying the Vatican II Novus Ordo Mass. So they sent him to, I think it was Oklahoma, I think is some, order of religious sisters needed a priest to say their masses and stuff, so they sent him up there so he would be able to still say his Latin masses. Which is really weird, because usually if you're a diocesan priest, you stay in the diocese forever. You don't get sent anywhere. I mean, if you're a priest of a religious order, then you can go anywhere in the world, but usually if you're a diocesan priest, you stay right in the diocese for forever. But they sent him out so he could still say his Latin masses. So, getting back to the SSPX, from the time of back with Pope Francis, they've been trying to, like I said, all the bishops are getting old now, really old. And they started asking Pope Francis for, we needed some more bishops for our order. And Rome kept saying, yeah, we'll do it sometime. And, and then this new Pope came in, this Leo the 14th or whatever it is. And the Chicago Pope. I knew he was going to be bad when they announced him, they announced he was from Chicago. He actually makes Francis look good because they kept asking him, please please appoint us some bishops for our order, we need them. And eventually, the SSPX told Rome, said, if you're not going to give us any bishops, we're going to appoint bishops on our own, just like they did back in the 1960s or whenever they formed. And Rome kept telling them, well, you can't do that. And they says, well, then appoint us somebody. Appoint us some bishops. Well, eventually, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, they ordained 4 new bishops in the SSPX without the Pope's approval. And this week, or actually last week, I think it was on Friday or Saturday, the Pope said SSPX is excommunicated. Any Catholic that goes to their Mass is excommunicated. If you use their sacraments, you're excommunicated. And, you know, this is a guy that, you know, meets with Jimmy Martin in Chicago. That's a known, let's say, if he's probably a member of the Rainbow community. If not, he's a outspoken supporter of the Rainbow community. And which basically makes him a heretic. And, you know, he's always having audiences with the Pope, and, you know, this Pope has appointed members of the Rainbow community as bishops, as, you know, probably, I don't know if he's appointed any cardinals yet, but he probably will when he does, if and when he does.
2121
So,
Hereford Drive. Cross streets are North Halcyon Drive.
But, you know, he declared that the SSPX is in schism, and the thing is they always quote the canon law about how only the Pope can appoint bishops and stuff, and that is true, but there's also a clause in there about if there is a moral crisis in the church, then basically a traditional society can, you know, can appoint their own bishops and stuff. And even if it comes out later on in the future that there was no crisis because the society from
breathing problems. 2121 Hereford Drive.
I'm trying to think of the word that I want. Because they really believed that there was a crisis, and it wasn't anything, you know, personal against this Pope or that Pope, but because they really did believe there was a crisis, it is still legitimate for them to do it, and they can't get punished for that. And that's basically why Pope Benedict XVI lifted the excommunications, because when Benedict XVI lifted the excommunications, he basically said the excommunications never existed. They were never excommunicated because it wasn't done in a lawful way. So it was like they never happened. So
copy. There was no engine on your call. You're going to 21.
You know, this Pope is willing to meet with heretics, Muslims, Jews, Protestants, and he's not meeting them to bring them to the church or bring them to Christ. He's, you know, he's being in solidarity with them, not to mention the rainbow crowd and abortionists and, you know, all kinds of these evil celebrities that he has audiences with, but he doesn't want to meet with any traditionalists. So there's a meme going around Facebook that I've been sharing too that shows one of the rainbow, I don't know if he's a bishop or whatever, but I mean, he's obviously rainbow person. And the caption said, The queergy has spoken. Traditionalists are excommunicated. Or, no, it doesn't say traditionalists, it says faithful Catholics are excommunicated.
Back in service.
And that's basically what it is. And it's sad. I mean, I'm laughing about it, but it's not anything to laugh about. It's just sad. And, you know, the Pope doing this is going to drive even a deeper wedge between the traditional-minded Catholics in Rome, which isn't good for anybody. So, church needs lots of prayers. Obviously, I still got my, well, they're basically the Institute of Christ the King is a lot like the SSPX, except for, you know, they adhere to, you know, Rome and the local bishops, and, you know, they wouldn't, I mean, they'll kind of not overtly, but they know that Vatican II is flawed, obviously. Otherwise they wouldn't be saying the traditional Mass, but they're not as outspoken as the SSPX is. And there's a couple of other groups, like Fraternal Society of St. Peter. So they're a good group. I've never been to any of their masses, but we actually had, back when our old priest was here, one of their priests came down and celebrated Mass with us, with our church down here. So that was good. But, you know, I'm on the SSPX side on this, and if they were the only traditional group around here, I'd definitely go to them even now. In fact, I still get mailings from them, so. You know, I've given them a small donation in the past. I'll probably still do it every once in a while.
218 Glen Ellen Place. Cross streets are Gainsborough Lane.
But most of my donations go to our shrine down here to support us. So, but if I have an extra few bucks, I'll send it to the SSPX just to support their mission.
6004 Crisisolo Drive.
So,
Cross streets are Bloomingdale Avenue and Pepperson Drive.
just say a couple words about Ukraine and Russia before I end. Right now, probably still ongoing. Russia is doing a major attack on Ukraine, and they've really been hitting Kiev hard tonight. Probably one of the biggest attacks on Kiev, and there's been some pretty big ones in the last few weeks. Russia hit a Ukrainian storage facility in Kiev that was storing their Flamingo missiles. And right before I made this video, the whole the whole building, you can see smoke billowing, and there's been, explosions after explosions after explosions, and all the missiles are blowing up. So that was an impressive strike. Of course, the green t-shirt, actually I got a green t-shirt, but a green t-shirt, otherwise known as Zelensky, will probably claim it was a food processing center or something that Russians hit civilian places. And now, I'm not saying that Russia doesn't hit civilian places every once in a while, but a lot of what happens is when Russia fires missiles and drones at Ukraine, of course, Ukraine fires the Patriot missiles and whatever other anti-aircraft defense, air defense systems they have. And we watched it tonight. We saw some of the Patriot missiles fly up, go around, and arch back down and blow up something on the ground because it missed whatever it was targeting. So there's a lot of that. That happened in Russia not too long ago. You could see one of the Russian air defense missiles come up, go down, and landed on a big oil tank and blew the top of it off and flipped it up and around in the air and came back down and exploded. But it happens. And so every time you shoot up one of the air defenses, it's, even if it hits the missile or drone that it's targeting, the pieces of it can come down and hit buildings and stuff. And I mean, you're talking, these missiles are big missiles, and some of these pieces that come down are as big and heavy as cars and buses and stuff like that, so they can do a lot of damage. But, and I guess Ukraine was targeting Moscow again with drones, and for a while, I don't think anything happened, but for a while Russia had air raid warnings that for the Kremlin itself and Red Square. And all I can say is if the Kremlin ever gets hit, which is a good possibility that it could at some point, but if it does, look out, because that could very possibly induce Putin to use nuclear weapons. And he might not just focus on Ukraine. He might be hitting some NATO countries. Because, I mean, he's been making statements lately that if we have nuclear weapons for a deterrent, and our nuclear weapons aren't deterring anybody, then, maybe we're going to have to start using them. And there's been a large number of protests in Russia by the people wanting Putin to nuke Ukraine. And Putin doesn't want to do it, but eventually they're going to force him to, or they're going to take him out. There's a couple of different things I've heard from Iran. The latest one is Iran wants to take out Trump, which that's nothing new, but they're making renewed threats of doing that. They're saying that the U.S. is going to pay for the death of their supreme leader, and they're going to make the United States pay, they're going to make Israel pay, you know, shouting death to America, death to Israel. America's the great Satan, Israel's a little Satan. But I'm wondering if, because last week, one of the one of the Iranians called on anybody to basically kidnap President Trump and take him back to Iran so they can put him on trial. I made a joke. I said the Democrats are currently negotiating with Iran to turn Trump over to them, which that wouldn't surprise me at all. But anyway, that's all I got for now. Wanted to make well, it wasn't really a quick video, but I wanted to make a video. So I'll say good night, God bless you, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.